Honourable members, pursuant to operations standing under 225, subsection 1, paragraph B, I wish to report to the House that I have received a petition from Messrs. Anthony Manyara and John Wangai asking that the National Assembly do repeal Section 22, subsection 1 of the Elections Act 2011. Honourable members, for clarity, Section 22, paragraph 1, paragraph B of subsection 1 of the said Act provides, and I quote, "A person may be nominated as a candidate for an election under this Act only if that person, in B, Romans 1 and 2, in the case of a member of Parliament, is a holder of a degree from a university recognized in Kenya, Roman 2, or in the case of a member of a county assembly, a degree from a university recognized in Kenya. Pursuant to Section 1A of the Act, the cited provisions are to come into force and apply to qualifications for candidates in the general elections to be held after the 2017 general elections, being August 2022 general elections. Honourable members, the petitioners argue that Section 22, subsection 1, paragraph B, are unconstitutional to the extent that they are discriminatory, inconsistent with the constitutional preserves in the Bill of Rights, and against the will and sovereignty of the people, who constitutionally are the ones to elect their representatives irrespective of academic credentials. They further argue that since the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the academic calendar, some sitting and aspiring candidates who do not meet the academic requirements may be disadvantaged, as they may not have completed the pursuit of their degrees within the projected time period of less than 2 years to the next elections. In addition, the petitioners claim that the university degree requirement will make political leadership a preserve of the elites and will disenfranchise a number of good leaders who may not have been privileged to pursue higher education. Honourable members, the petitioners therefore pray that this House deletes Section 22, subsection 1, paragraph B of the Elections Act in its entirety, so as to provide a fair playground to all candidates seeking elective positions, regardless of their educational backgrounds. Honourable members, on the same breath, one James Muridhi Ndwiga of ID number 25976982 has also petitioned the National Assembly, proposing that the National Assembly deletes the same section and substituting it with the following new section, and I quote the proposed provision: "Be a holder of a certificate, diploma, or other post-secondary school qualification acquired 1 year before a general election or election recognized by the relevant ministry, and in such manner as may be prescribed by the Education Act," close the quotes. Honourable members, having determined that the matters raised in the two petitions are well within the authority of this House, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 227, these consolidated petitions stand committed to the Departmental Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and the petitioners in accordance with Standing Order 227, subsection 2. The committee may also introduce a bill to this House proposing to legislate in the manner prayed for by the petitioners. I thank you, now members. There is no question. Well, honourable members, the petitioners have a right, of course, to petition the House, but of course, it's also fair to appreciate that Article 99 of the Constitution, among other qualifications, states that such educational qualifications as may be prescribed by an act of Parliament. So I think even that they talk about unconstitutionalism, they may need also then to also address Article 99. I hope honourable members, not all of you want to comment on this. Honourable Duale.
The Speaker, I want to thank you for bringing this petition, reading the petition, in accordance with our standing orders. And Mr. Speaker, you are right, every Kenyan has a right to. But Mr. Speaker, I have some history, and I'm sure Honorable Bandi and Honorable Kimunya will agree with me. This matter came in the 10th Parliament, when we were in the old chamber, where the Senate is. And I remember the chorus was, people must go back to school. Speaker, that time, the number of people who didn't have degree were many, and they were in the cabinet. Speaker, I don't want to name them. There were many in the cabinet of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Honorable Raila Odinga. So what happened, when the House passed it, President Kibaki used his veto power in accordance with Article 115 of the Constitution, and he overturned the decision of the House. Then in the 11th Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we had a very robust discussion, and we took into consideration the concerns of our colleagues, and we said, until 2022, go back to school, go back to university. And Mr. Speaker, COVID cannot be the reason. Today, you know what's happening? When even your wife chases you away, you use COVID as a reason. The universities are on, people are online. So, Mr. Speaker, as you rightly read Article 99, Sub-Article 1 of the Constitution, it is a function of this House to enact an act of Parliament. And Mr. Speaker, there is this story of leaders are born, but leaders, when they are born, all of us, we didn't have any experience. We didn't have any qualification. We went to school, some became doctors. Mr. Speaker, we cannot have people who have no basic education qualification to participate in the function of budget-making process of this House. Mr. Speaker, we cannot have people who don't have the required education qualification to interrogate the Auditor General's report of this House. We can't have people who have no qualification to bring bills and represent their people. So, Mr. Speaker, we are taking our children to school. We can't educate our children. And then here we tell people, you can come to the National Assembly or the Senate when you have no qualification. Mr. Speaker, I really want to urge the House that this time around, if they failed in the 10th Parliament, and if they fail, and if I am one of them, I had a chance between 2017 to 2021 is 4 years. That is the 4 years you can take a degree, basic degree, bachelor's program. And the degree, in fact, the degree must be verifiable, and you must come with a transcript. You know? You cannot just come and not hundreds of degrees. There are people in this House who are called doctors, and they have got 100 degrees. That is not a degree. So you must have the transcripts. We must see your colleagues who are in the university. Your lecturers must be known. And Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the House that this petition must be dealt with in accordance with Article 99, Sub-Article 1.
Member for Ugenya.
Honourable Speaker, I didn't intend to speak on this one, but Mr. Speaker, Honourable Dwale has talked about it. You know, this same constitution that they are saying is, the law that they are saying is discriminative, talks about the president must have a degree, the governor must have a degree, and so we are just extending this to ensure that those who come to this House don't stay here for 4 years and don't say anything. Mr. Speaker, we have members in this House who go for 5 years and they claim to be working on the ground. Our first and foremost duty as members of Parliament is to debate in this chamber, to legislate and bring bills in this chamber, not work on the ground. In fact, sometimes I think that if in future we want to make this Parliament robust, then we take CDF away, so that members take time in this floor, and so that we are able to debate as a people. Mr. Speaker, people talk about young MPs those days, like my Senator Orengo, Manyara, Shikuku. They had no CDF. Mr. Speaker, but they spent their time on this floor, made their contribution on this floor, Mr. Speaker, and did so well for the country. But here, we are spending so much time following CDF, how much money has come in, blah, blah, blah. So we don't play pay attention. And that's why some members said that wacha wajaluo waongee kizungu kwa bunge as we work on the ground. It's not about kizungu. It's about being able to interact with the tools that we're using in this house. Mr. Speaker, if someone has not gone to school, how will he use this iPad? How will he be able to log in and be able to even interact? Because you're supposed now to log into this system, go to house business, check reports, check what's there before you're able to contribute. Mr. Speaker, if you can't do that, then we are wasting people's time. Mr. Speaker, above all, if we are to respect the law, Mr. Speaker, then this parliament will stand indicted if we interfere with this particular law. Because we have tried it so many times. This time around, Mr. Speaker, we must put our feet down, and if there's any member in this house who thinks that he's going to convince others, more than 70% of members of this house now have degrees. More than 70%. So if you don't have, Mr. Speaker, this is the time to ensure that you get one. If you don't get one, then wait for 2027. Otherwise, we cannot be keeping going back and forth. Then members, Mr. Speaker, you ruled the other day here. Some members, instead of now engaging with the reports, they want to engage with the witnesses that have come before the committees because they have nothing useful or useless to add to what is happening in Parliament. Speaker, so much as the petitioners have a right to bring the petition, Mr. Speaker, I want to request the committee concerned that let us not waste time on this matter. There are more serious businesses to be looked at. Iebc has not given us a report on how they want to do the elections the next 1 year. The Legal Affairs Committee, check for us. How prepared is Iebc? Check for us. How prepared are we to do elections? Not these small things of degrees and what. Let those ones be done by the universities, Mr. Speaker. It's not our business to start asking people to go to school when they very well know that the reason Kenyatta, the president, and Moi, and Kibaki and Uhuru has been spending so much money in education is so that all our children are able to participate in national development. You can't do it in this age by claiming to be having national education. That's nowhere. Or by osmosis, Mr. Speaker. So we want to ask the Legal Affairs Committee, this is a matter that can't require to spend a week. Let us give the petitioners a report, the answer back this next week, and look for better things, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Now, let's not debate it. Let's just point salient features so that, because I can see there are very many of you who have comment, please. 1-2 minutes, Honorable Kagogo Bowen.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to comment this issue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, under Article 95, Mr. Speaker, the role of, I am a graduate from Jomo Kenyatta University, Mr. Dwale. So, Mr. Speaker, it is impossible to have legislators here who are illiterate. You cannot, legislate when you are illiterate. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, we have seen, Mr. Speaker, we have seen even in some cases where you have a law professor as a governor and, oversighted by illiterate MCAs. Mr. Speaker, this issue, we discussed it in the 11th Parliament, like the Honorable Dwale said, Mr. Speaker, and this time we are not going to postpone again to 2027. Mr. Speaker, we need to deal this thing once and for all, Mr. Speaker, and we make sure that we have members here who are able to interrogate members of the executive. We are able to, interrogate the bills which are coming into this house, Mr. Speaker, and be a legislators of substance, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Emuhaya. He's not ready. Member for Alego Usonga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, for the avoidance of doubt, I am well schooled. I went to the university, and many people in this house know that I went to school. But, Honorable Speaker, the crisis in Kenya is not about lack of academic papers. It's about lack of integrity. And there's no evidence that if you have many papers, then probably you have more integrity than the others. It is very clear, Honorable Speaker, that many of us have gone to school and we have many papers. But when it comes to interrogation and decision making, the education level does not apply and is never the yardstick. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I would like to say that this House should not block Kenyan voters from electing whoever they want to elect. You can talk for yourself. I'm giving my views. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, this petition, in my view, is rightfully before us. And let us give Kenyans an opportunity to elect. I want to give an example, Honorable Speaker. There are many members in this House who do not have degrees. But they are effective leaders than a lot of us who have degrees, who have papers. Therefore, I want to say that let us consider if we are solving a crisis of leadership in Kenya, let us look for what is our problem. Our problem is not academic papers. Our problem is people who lack integrity. People who have gone to school, but they can never make the issues that help Kenyans. And therefore, I want to say, Honourable Speaker, that in my view, this House must legislate and answer to the petitioner's request. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Well, but of course, it's just to observe that it was dictated by the Constitution. Such educational qualifications as shall be prescribed in an Act of Parliament. The Act of Parliament is the Elections Act 2011. In fact, it is number 11 of 2011. Just in case you may have doubts about it, that's what it does. So the Parliament, the 10th Parliament, was acting to implement the requirements of Article 99. So I don't know. Maybe we know. It's not something that is found on the streets. Member for Iebc.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you've just said what I wanted to say. But for purposes of clarifications and also on record, I'm a holder of a master's in general surgery. I'm a surgeon. So, Honorable Speaker, I think our Constitution demands that this House legislates on the qualifications for somebody to contest any position. And that is our constitutional requirement as a House. And therefore, in the 2011 Act, Election Act, it was legislated, and people have had 10 years knowing that this act was going to come into force. Therefore, there is no question now for people to start saying, let's postpone again to 2027. I think it is wrong, and it's an abuse of the legislative power of this House. And if we will be legislating to change that, it will be unconstitutional. Because changing the requirement, I think for those who are lawyers here will tell us that is unconstitutional from my own understanding. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
And of course, again, even as you do that, remember Article 261, through which there is a schedule about the laws that Parliament had to pass within specified periods. So this was one of them. So I don't, anyway, but Honorable John Bandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would want to start by saying that petitioners have a right to petition Parliament or petition National Assembly to consider any matter that would be of interest to the nation and interest to them. But, Mr. Speaker, this law was passed in the 10th Parliament, as Honorable Duale did say. And remember, the person who inserted that amendment, and I hope I'm not wrong on this, is the leader of majority, Amos Kimunya. And it was passed when our colleagues, some of them who didn't have degrees then, were in Parliament and they didn't know we were passing. I want to give you the magnitude of the problem if you don't have a degree. I remember very clearly and vividly, we passed that amendment, and those colleagues of ours who didn't have degrees then, one of them even approached me at the lobby and asked me, is it true that we have passed an amendment that is now going to bar anyone who doesn't have a degree from contesting? And Mr. Speaker, I told him yes. And he was shocked, and he was seated right inside Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And that member of Parliament is still in this House, Mr. Speaker. But I don't know whether he has a degree now. I don't want to say who he is. But, Mr. Speaker, Immediately thereafter, there was lobbying. And those members went to the president. I remember some of them approached my party leader, and they requested us to do something. Actually, one of the members of parliament who petitioned the president is now having a degree because that person is now a governor, Mr. Speaker. So there is enough time. There was enough time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, immediately after 2017 election, I did speak to this matter at a public function, and it became a national debate. I told members of the county assemblies who didn't have a degree or who don't have a degree to go back to school in good time. And a demonstration was organized by some of my opponents and asked 3 areas: Nairobi to demonstrate, women to demonstrate against me. I don't know how it turned out to be a women affair. Kisumu, they called me and told me, we are not going to demonstrate, but you have been asked to demonstrate against you. And Mombasa. Now the Nairobi ones went and demonstrated against me. But I told them, I'm like Noah. I am making the ark. I'm telling you, ruin is coming. Please take cover. And you are not taking cover. Let's reach 2022 is when you will know that I was a prophet. Mr. Speaker, that hour of reckoning has now come. Those MCAs who are saying Mbadi is abusing us, now you should know that Mbadi was their friend. If you still don't have a degree, please, it is too bad for you, because this house is hostile to any other extension from the way I look at it. My final comment, Mr. Speaker, how do you expect chair of a budget committee in a county to be someone who doesn't have a degree like it is in Homa Bay County? I mean, surely, how? Let us be serious. You expect the chair of budget committee like Kanini Kega here, looking at budget estimates, and membership of that committee has people who have not gone beyond standard 7, standard 8. Just because sometimes they are politically correct, let us retain this law as is. So I want to request the committee not to ever give this petition a thought of proposing an amendment to the statute law. Instead, the report they should bring here is to affirm it and have those members who still don't have a degree. And Paul, we still have other positions where you can still serve this country very well. You can be appointed to some committees in the constituencies and other places. Mr. Speaker, this law must stand. Thank you.
Leader Majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Like my colleague, Honorable Badi, has said, it's obviously the right of every Kenyan to entertain whatever wishes they have and to bring it here. But as you rightly said, we are obligated to prescribe under the new constitution. Within the new constitution, it introduced academic qualifications. Previously, the old constitution did not have that, because the framers of the constitution determined that it was necessary to have a certain basic minimum educational qualification. And when I brought the amendment here during the 10th Parliament, I remember we were sitting in the old chamber, and the matter became controversial. We even had a division. And people voted and signed in the lobby that they want a degree. And immediately after that, there was a delegation. And I remember I was summoned by the former president. What have you done? And I was being accused of all manner of things. I've rigged them out. I want to keep. But eventually, he said, now, much as you are prescribing at this point, there's only a couple of months to the general election. It would look unfair that you're almost doing it to block people. But can we give people time to go to university? And I believe that's what happened now within the 11th Parliament. People have been given time. Now, as the committee looks at this petition, I also want them to consider that following the enactment of that act, there are people who have invested their money and time to go to school because they now want to join parliamentary
or county assembly leadership. If we then are seen that we make a law, and then we reverse it so that the donkeys can catch up with the horses, we will never make a law that will be obeyed, because people will not have the predictability that this law will hold into the future. They will actually think that we can always lobby for a law to be changed when we are not compliant. And I think that should not be the basis of this House. We cannot be legislating in vain. So what we would like to encourage them is let them go to school, let them think of 2027, and let them give an opportunity for those who have prepared themselves to participate in the 2022 elections in compliance with the existing law, but not now change the law to suit those who have failed to comply. Because, Mr. Speaker, it will be the same thing, the same argument could be extended. You must belong to a political party or declare yourself as an independent. Now, if we are to go back and start changing that, we're changing the law because some people have not joined a party, we will be making nonsense of the legal system that we have created to underpin our electoral system. And I think this is the fact that people could actually vote through a division and not even know what they were voting for until it was announced at the news, at 1 o'clock news. It was announced that some people will be locked out. And that's when they started panicking that what law did we just pass? So it just tells you that the quality of debate, the quality of representation, the quality of oversight will be far much improved when people can stand in this House, read the documents, so that they don't have to keep asking me, do you have some moving notes? You know, because people should be able to read a committee report. People should be able to interrogate a bill and come and prosecute it here on the floor of the House, so that they are not an extension of my thinking, or an extension of Nobuduala's thinking, or John Baddy's thinking. That is the kind of thing we need to enrich this House, even if for our respectability. And because we have endowed with a very progressive constitution that has set the pace for the rest of Africa. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Now, honourable members, you know, there's only so much limited time for comments, but let me hear now from another segment of members. We don't know when the donkeys are going to catch up with the horses, but Honorable Danita Gatti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this opportunity to the other gender, because, Mr. Speaker, we are talking about something very important, that is education. And, Mr. Speaker, allow me to really say that I do not support that petition, simply because, Mr. Speaker, we have come a long way as a country in terms of education. Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Finance just read the budget the other day, and you saw the amount of money that was allocated to education, Mr. Speaker. So we will be making a mockery of education in this House if we can accept that someone can come into this dignified House without a degree, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you are aware that I am a very proud Ivy League graduate. I do happen to be an Ivy League graduate from Columbia University, USA, courtesy of the efforts of other people. And Mr. Speaker, many of us, the Honorable Joyce Emanikor, the Honorable Tekla Toom, the Honorable Senator Maura, we all went to the US to pursue education. Mr. Speaker, we go extra miles to just get an education, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, when this House can actually agree to such a petition, Mr. Speaker, it would really make a mockery out of education. Mr. Speaker, next week, in the month of July, in London, Mr. Speaker, the G7 are currently talking about issues to do with the climate change, issues to do with education. We have a lot of money that we are financing, Mr. Speaker. The Free Primary Education Summit is coming up in London, where the G7 countries are putting together money to support education. Mr. Speaker, what are we even talking about? We must have educated members of parliament in this House. Anybody who aspires to sit in this dignified House, Mr. Speaker, must have a basic degree to come to this House, Mr. Speaker. So we cannot, I don't even know, Mr. Speaker, why we're even discussing this, Mr. Speaker. And for the first time, I support Iebc to put a strict measure. People must go to school, Mr. Speaker. Leaders must go to school. Members of parliament must go to school. Why are we educating our children to do what, Mr. Speaker? And we are saying that you can go to Parliament without a degree. Mr. Speaker, please, that petition I don't support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Wamalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Article 119 is very clear in terms of petitions to this floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, the other day I was listening to some members on this floor of the House when the Auditor General reports are brought here, and they use the word qualified and unqualified. And I was shocked that you could not tell the difference. And it's indeed important, Mr. Speaker. We do agree that people must go to school, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, this petition is at the right place. Mr. Speaker, under Article 118, there must be public participation. We are saying this, Mr. Speaker, because some circumstances have been unique in this country, Mr. Speaker. How I wish that the Committee of Justice will do the proper work so that we get that report, Mr. Speaker, so that we'll be able to know what action to take. Mr. Speaker, we've had great leaders, like Winston Churchill. He never had a degree, Mr. Speaker, but he was such a wonderful leader, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm humbly requesting. I know it was a different century, Mr. Speaker, but what we are trying to put across is this. I know some members are saying, who have been my students at the university, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the issue is this. We are not saying, in fact, during BBI, Mr. Speaker, we were in Kakamega, and members of the county assembly, they wanted to lock down because they thought, Mr. Speaker, that the issue of the degree was in the BBI. We had to tell them that it was in the Elections Act, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say this. I was given a responsibility, Mr. Speaker, by the county assemblies, that I should bring an amendment on that law, Mr. Speaker. And I told them, I'm a messenger. Just listen, Mr. Speaker. Please. Yes. And I drafted this on it's on your desk, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy the petition has come. Because this matter they'll try to expedite. So that when time comes on this floor of the House, we'll be able to debate. But in some unique circumstances, if Corona contributed, Mr. Speaker, let's give a listening. So that we'll be able to know. Leadership is not only about academic qualifications, Mr. Speaker. I do agree, yes, it's been a challenge. Even members here, when you were discussing about the budget, they were asking. But some have made an effort of going to school. When you go to school, Mr. Speaker, if you didn't qualify to go to university, you must start with a certificate. I know members, they went through a certificate, Mr. Speaker. Now they've done a diploma. And it's a longer process. So from the diploma is when you'll be allowed to do a degree. If such circumstances are there, Mr. Speaker, we can give a leeway and extend it to 2027, Mr. Speaker, if it's going to allow, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Mlele.
Thank you, Speaker, for this opportunity. I was raising on a point of order, Honorable Speaker, because my friend Dr. Wamalwa, while he was speaking, he had lowered his mask to a level where he was not really covering his mouth nor his nose. Honorable Speaker, we know that this COVID is very serious in this country at this time. I think that it behooves all members of this House to take it seriously and kindly just wear your mask properly. It doesn't reduce you from saying what you want to say, but just wear this mask. It might protect somebody. You never know. But let us keep this mask properly worn all the time while we are in this House. And having said that, Honorable Speaker, because you gave me this chance, I think it is important that we uphold this law. If people are going to come to debate in this House, let them come properly armed. They have had sufficient time. The Constitution requires it. The law requires it. Let those who are ready go out and come out to this House after they're elected within the stipulations of the Elections Act. And it requires a degree to come to this House. So be it.
Member for North Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to join my colleagues really in making a statement about this petition. Mr. Speaker, sir, as my colleagues have said, clearly leadership demands some level of skills. The Speaker said the law is very clear. Even in the Constitution, it's required that the President, the Governor, and the deputies have degrees. And it's required even for the rest of the elected members, whether at the National Assembly or at the county level, they have some level of education. So, Speaker, I was in 10th Parliament with Honorable Duale and others, and this was an issue. We passed the law, but there's so many members who lacked the degree at that time, quite a number, and they petitioned the President successfully. And we had to come back in 11th Parliament and we passed the law. People were given 5 years to go and prepare themselves if they want to continue to be members of this House or at the county level. The Speaker, sir, it requires us to really undertake the responsibilities that come with our positions in this House. Mr. Speaker, there is no way, without a degree, you can oversee a minister who is armed with the doctorate degree. PS and others, likewise. There's no way you can interrogate a budget of 3 trillion shillings. Mr. Speaker, sir, you cannot even do good summation. Mr. Speaker, sir, it demands that we have those skills, and for us to really be able to undertake our functions of oversight, of representation, of lawmaking, and even, Mr. Speaker, to be able to determine and make a decision on issues of national concern to this nation, we need those requirements. I strongly support that members have a degree at all levels. I even wish maybe for members of Parliament, it should be a master's degree, not even the first degree.
Well, honourable members, maybe, it was just commented, we are limited by the time we have to have for that. But just, of course, to appreciate, before I give the last member to comment on this, to know that you've heard the petition says that this requirement is discriminatory. But I don't know, in that case then, is it to say that the Constitution has created discrimination in requiring presidents and governors to have university degrees? Is it at CECs? So is it to say that then, because if this is discriminatory, then it means that you must go back to the Constitution and overhaul it and say you need farmers. I mean, Honorable Olagwaluoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to go back in history a little. Honorable Chacha Uganya, Honorable Duale, Honorable Kemunya, Honorable Badi were within the 10th Parliament when we were debating this. Mr. Speaker, then it was very controversial, but we all agreed that we have that in the law. At that time, Mr. Speaker, there were members of this House who were in the cabinet who did not have degrees. There were some who were backbenchers like us, but were very close to State House. As soon as we passed the law, and like Badi said, they were not even aware we were discussing it. But when they realized that it had been passed, they lobbied and they actually went to see His Excellency President Iebc. And that is when now Honorable Kemunya was asked to say what happened in Parliament. Since then, when His Excellency President Kibaki refused to assent to the law, up to now it's 10 years. It was very clear when he refused to assent, that provision would take effect in 2022. It has been 10 years since. If anybody was serious about getting a university degree, they would do it. Mr. Speaker, what I see in that petition is, even if you have a driving license, you can qualify to come here. And I'm glad, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that you have given the House guidance. You have guided the House on the constitutional bedrock of what we have in the law. And it makes me happy that as members are discussing this in the plenary, my chairman, Honorable Muturi Kingano, is seriously making notes and listening. Because when it comes to the committee where I have the privilege of serving, we are going to look at the views that have been expressed by these members. We are going to go back to the Hansard also and look at why we have not provision in the law. But as I stand, from where I stand now, Mr. Speaker, I can tell the House, and as a lawyer too, that that provision in the law is not unconstitutional. If it were, then even the provision as to age could be said to be unconstitutional. But as Kenyans, the petitioners have the right to bring this to our attention. But I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, as a member of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, this matter should not be allowed to go through. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, honourable members, I remember also the Salaries and Remuneration Commission placed members of parliament where they did, because it was saying that there is no requirement there is no education requirement for you to become a member. You can come from the village and just because you are able to mobilize clans people, and they bring you here. That's how the Salaries and Remuneration Commission determined that no, this job which doesn't have any qualification, you put them in number 43 or 47 or thereabouts. And so indeed, I think the point raised, I think some of you have raised, even the members of county assemblies must also take cognizance of those views expressed by the SRC in placing them where they place them. It's on that one of the reasons was, this one, you just walk in, as long as villagers and your clanswomen, and they come singing, and then they carry you into parliament. And, I mean, so, Honorable Maore, you want to have the last bite of the cherry?
Mr. Speaker, I want to also bring my sentiment to this one. And actually, my emphasis is, if you find the way the leaders have been elevated in the recent times, there should be never an excuse of taking elders to the county assembly or to parliament, but they should be people who are prepared and purified through education, so that we don't have the chaos like we are having in the county assemblies. The money that is sent there, nobody is able to account, because the majority, they are just waiting to be told, fanya hii, tufiche hii hapa, until you find a situation. If it is in the county assembly or even in the national assembly, people have no idea what is happening. So I want to agree, Mr. Speaker, the issue of degrees, and from a qualified university, as the Honorable Dwale put it, we just don't want somebody to come and ranch and come with the printed papers to say that they have a degree. When you will follow around, you don't know who their classmates with their world, or you don't know which university is that. So, Mr. Speaker, this committee by Honorable Kigano should save this country by not allowing a bill on this one. Kutusumbua tu bure. Asante.
Now, from the education sector, the Honorable Mboko Milemba, who and
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for being kind. I lost my opportunity. I'll be very brief. From the perspective of workers, every job must have a job description. And then the job description is the one that leads to creation of titles and creation of job levels, which leads to ranking in form of job evaluation. So when, Speaker, you find yourself in trouble a lot sometimes with SRC, you've just spoken on it, on issues that concern members of parliament, is because there's no job description. So this is a law that's actually trying to bring a level and job description for members of parliament, so that the ranking can be known and can be in a bracket that is sure, that is really known. And that will be good not only for the House, but everybody else who will be in the House. Finally, Honorable Speaker, on education, usually there's need to encourage the society. You do this by encouraging the young ones. If we make it that coming to parliament, you can come without any certain job description, then the youthful people in school will not find mentorship in us. And for that reason alone, there's really need to put a JD for people who are coming to parliament. And finally, Honorable Speaker, the education has been expanded. There's online for studies for everyone. And indeed, anybody can get the degree from where he is, from the comfort of his home. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. And I believe in the process, we also know that You know, if you go all over, everybody calling you, or even people are greeting you, and they say, oh, who are you? I'm honorable. I mean, how do you honor yourself? Your name cannot be honorable. You are yourself, let others, you are honored by others. But it's, you know, these things, I think, let's try to educate one another, including those others, those many honorables out there who want to honor themselves before they are honored by the society. Well, let the petition be committed to the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. The chair has been listening. I'm sure he will give it a due consideration. Next order.
Order number 5, papers